Let's talk about a fascinating secret your brain keeps. It turns out the successes you have today, they get hardwired into your memory while you sleep, all thanks to a kind of hidden replay button. So let's dive in and see exactly how this thing works.
Think about your day. You've had literally thousands of experiences, some big, some tiny. But by this time next week, you'll probably only remember a handful of them. So what's the deal? How does your brain sift through all that noise and decide what's actually worth holding on to? What's the filtering process that separates a random thought from a lifelong memory?
Well, it turns out the real magic happens when you're not even conscious. Every single night, your brain basically becomes a movie director, sitting down to rewatch the day's footage.
This process has a name. It's called memory consolidation. And for a long time now, we've known that during sleep, your brain literally reactivates the very same neural patterns that fired when you were awake. It's like playing back the day's highlights to strengthen the important connections, deciding which scenes are going to make the final cut for your long-term memory. And for decades, the star of this nightly show has always been the hippocampus. The best way to think of it is as the brain's meticulous librarian. It is incredibly good at logging the facts, the what and the where of your day. The hippocampus is where this whole memory replay thing was first discovered, and for a long time, we kind of thought it was the main character in this entire story.
But, just like in any good mystery, a new suspect has just entered the scene. And it suggests the hippocampus might not be working alone after all.
Because, let's be real, memory isn't just about dry facts. It's also about feeling. How do you remember the satisfaction of solving a really tough problem or the pure joy of getting a reward? The hippocampus is great at the what and where, but what part of the brain is in charge of stamping a memory with a tag that says, hey, this was valuable, this was worth it?
Well, say hello to the ventral striatum, or the VS for short. Now, this isn't the librarian, this is the brain's value assessor. This is the hub that lights up when you get a reward. It's what drives your motivation. And this leads to a massive question. Could this reward center also be replaying memories to stamp them as worth keeping?
To get to the bottom of that, scientists designed this really elegant experiment involving some rats, a T-shaped maze, and of course, a very tasty reward.
The setup is just brilliantly simple. First up, you record the rat's brain activity while it's just resting, before it does anything. That's our baseline. We'll call it rest 1. Then, you have the rat run the maze to find some food, all while you're still recording its brain. That's the maze phase. And finally, you let the rat rest again after the task and record that activity too. That's rest 2. The whole experiment really just hinges on comparing the brain patterns from these 3 different periods.
And this is what that brain activity actually looks like when you visualize it. Each one of these little squares you see is a map of the maze, showing the activity of just one single neuron. See those hot reddish colors? That's where a specific neuron was firing like crazy. And when you put them all together, they create this totally unique neural fingerprint for the experience of running that maze.
So, with these unique fingerprints in hand, the scientists could finally ask the million-dollar question.
Would that very specific pattern of neurons firing together, that unique fingerprint they captured during the maze run, would it just spontaneously reappear while the rat was resting and sleeping afterwards? If it did, it would be the first real proof that the brain's reward center actually replays memories.
And the answer is right here. Just look at the diagram in the center. That's our neural fingerprint during the actual maze task. Now compare it to the one on the left, from before the task. They look pretty different, right? But now, look at the diagram on the right, from the rest period after the maze. It is a near-perfect match to the one in the middle. That maze pattern is clearly, without a doubt, replaying itself.
So, the answer was a huge, resounding yes. This was the first concrete evidence that a deep brain region like the ventral striatum, the reward hub, spontaneously reactivates the memory of a valuable experience. It's not just remembering what happened, it's re-experiencing its value.
But the researchers, they dug even deeper. They really wanted to know when this replay is at its strongest. And this chart says it all. You can see there's some replay happening during wakefulness, sure, but just look at that bar on the far right. The replay is way, way stronger during slow-wave sleep. That's our deepest, most restorative phase of sleep, and it's clearly when the brain is working overtime to lock in these valuable memories.
Okay, this is already incredible, but it leaves one final huge piece of the puzzle. If the librarian, the hippocampus, and the value assessor, the ventral striatum, are both replaying memories, how are they communicating? What's the secret signal that synchronizes the whole performance?
Well, the answer seems to be these amazing things called hippocampal ripples. These are incredibly fast bursts of electrical activity that come right out of the hippocampus. And earlier research had already shown these ripples were a big deal for memory replay inside the hippocampus. So the new hypothesis was pretty simple. Maybe these ripples are like the conductor's baton, a signal that tells all the other important brain areas, okay, orchestra, replay that last memory, now.
In this slide right here, this is the smoking gun. When scientists looked at the neurons in the reward center, they found this stunning connection. On the left, you see the neurons that were perfectly synced up with those ripples from the hippocampus. And boom, they showed powerful reactivation of the maze memory. But on the right, the neurons that weren't synced to the ripples, they showed nothing. No replay at all. The ripple from the librarian is the clear, unmistakable signal for the value assessor to hit its own replay button.
So, we've gone through the what and the how, but the biggest question of all is why? What does this all mean for you and how you form memories every single day?
Well, what this really tells us is that memory isn't just some passive filing system. It's an active, rich rehearsal of both the facts and the value of an experience. While you're sleeping, your brain is actively deciding which of your successes are worth keeping, and it strengthens them by replaying not just the memory, but also the feeling of the reward that came with it. It's this perfect partnership between the librarian and the value assessor, building a library of memories that are designed to motivate you in the future.
And this leaves us with one final, fascinating question to chew on. We now know for sure that the brain replays valuable, rewarding experiences to lock in the lessons of success. But what about the other side of the coin? Does your brain also have a replay button for failure, forcing you to re-experience your mistakes while you sleep so you can learn from them? Well, that's a story for another time.